I love playing for George Steinbrenner. He was a guy that had a passion for winning, and you kind of knew when you came over here, and the stories about him that the bottom line was to win with him, and he was going to do everything possible. You knew the team; he was going to make trades or pick up free agents. So every year you're going to be competitive. But to work for him as a manager, it's a lot different than as a player. But I thoroughly enjoyed him. I thoroughly enjoyed his passion. He wanted things done right. He expected you to wear your uniform right, to carry yourself like a Yankee, and that was important to him. And that's the way he was. But I really loved playing for him.
So you brought up the managing. So what was the managerial experience like? Was it tough for you not to have like the same control of the game like you did as a player, like having to watch everyone else perform and you really couldn't do much on the field to help it?
Well, managing and playing was a lot different. When I played, I only worried about myself. I had to get myself ready to play. Play the game. But when you're managing, you're in charge of everybody. And but I was groomed for that. I went to the minor leagues to learn. Dick Hauser, who I played for in Kansas City and also played for in New York, he talked me into managing, and he gave me some really good pointers. That I needed to learn and to be successful, and we talked about it a lot. And when I came over, I came over and I was in the minor leagues, so I knew what the Yankees had. When I got the opportunity and I got called up, and it was in a period where we didn't have a lot of players. We trade a lot of young players away, Jay Buhner, and guys like that. So, and the other thing I don't think people know or understand was I had four general managers in 6 months that I managed.
Oh
So,
wow.
yeah, it
Huh.
was a turmoil type of thing, that it was a tough situation, but I wouldn't say anything negative about it. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the players that I had. We were just in a downtime at that time.
Yeah, it's tough for me to vision that because I've never seen the Yankees have a losing season, even though they haven't won a championship in a while. I was like born in '92, I'll age myself here, so like they had a winning season every single year. So like I know that was a rough era. That was like a little before I was born, but let's get to a good time that was like maybe 10 years before that. What was it like being teammates with Reggie Jackson and witnessing that three-homer game in the World Series?
That was really, really exciting. I mean, to be a part of that, that was my first World Series. I was just, so excited about being in it. It was a dream come true for me as a kid because I was a diehard Yankee fan. And then to see, Reggie perform like he did, hitting the three home runs, the crowd was just electric that night. The stadium was vibrating. And, the last one he hit was the farthest one he hit. And, it was just I thought the whole place was going to come down, but that was a great time. It was a great night. It was a fun night. The like I said, New York was electric, and playing with Reggie, I really enjoyed playing with him. He was a competitor. He knew how to win. He liked the big moments. There's some chaos around it, with him and George and Billy and Thurman and guys like that. But in those years there was a lot of chaos, but it never affected our team when we went on the field. We went out there to play, and those guys were professionals. And when they went between the lines, it was to beat you.
So you brought up Billy. I know he was a very hands-on manager, probably about as hands-on as he can get based on the stories I've heard. So like, what was it like being a player with Billy? Seeing his tirades, like him managing the game so well, like strategically. Like, did you like playing for him? Was there some tough situations? Like, what was your overall view of it?
Well, when I came over here, I got traded over, on an off day um, from the White Sox, and I was so excited to come to the Yankees, and Billy was the manager, and I'd seen him manage. I'd played against him and stuff like that, and I heard stories about him and stuff like that. He was a very fiery guy. He wasn't my favorite guy that I played for in New York. I played for the guy that I really enjoyed playing for was Dick Hauser, and I really enjoyed
Okay.
playing for Bob Lemon. They kind of let you just play the game, and there's a lot of chaos. I think I played for Billy. I think he got fired three times or four times when I was here. Yeah, but he was a guy that he was a winning guy, but it was just so much things going on and chaos. And I remember in '78 when he stepped down, we were starting to make a comeback. Guys, we had a lot of guys hurt that year early. I was hurt. Catfish was hurt. Um, but I honestly don't believe we would have won if Billy would have stayed on, because there was just so much things going on with the team, a lot of friction. And what happened when Billy stepped down, Bob Lemon came in. I'll never forget the meeting. He walked in and he said, "You guys were world champions last year. Just go play the game." And it was like somebody popped a balloon. Everybody kind of relaxed, and we started concentrating on just playing baseball. The other thing was the papers were on strike, so there was no negativity being written. You could just, not have to worry about picking up the paper and see this guy's against this guy, Billy's against it, whatever, all the negativity. So everybody kind of relaxed, and we knew we played the Red Sox 7 times in September, and if we picked up one game every week, by the time we get to September, we had a good shot at catching them, and that's what happened.
I'll take you back to that home run and stuff. I mean, obviously, it's such an amazing moment. Could you tell me like a fun celebration story that took place, maybe off the field, like after you guys had finally taken them down, or was it all business, get ready for the playoffs, or did you guys have like a good night after that
Oh
moment?
no, we had a big celebration in the locker room. I mean, look, that's the most pressure game I've ever played in. After playing in that game, everything was easy. Playing in a World Series, whatever, it was easy. That was the most pressure back, because it was a Jewish holiday. The whole world stopped, played an afternoon game. Yankees, Red Sox, two teams that didn't like each other. We go to a one-game playoff, which doesn't happen very often. And there was a lot on the line. And, we had come back from 14 games. I give the Red Sox credit because they had won the last 6 games or 7 games, and we lost the last day to create the one-game playoff. But it was electric. The crowd was electric. And the feeling of the game, before the game, our guys were loose like they normally were, joking around and stuff like that. But as the game went on, you could feel the tension start to build in the game. The crowd started getting more in it. Every out became very, very important. But after it was all over and Goose popped up, Yastrzemski to third base, we went in and we really celebrated and we had a good time. It didn't last very long because we had to get on a plane and go to Kansas City and play the next day. So, but we had a
Okay.
great time. It was an awesome feeling, and it was just a great game.
Yeah, it just looked like one of the better games of all time, probably. I'm sure it was awesome. And just to come back after the 14 games, and you told me how you were injured and you fouled the ball off your foot, and and you switched bats and cracked the bat and everything. Like, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people wouldn't know, I guess.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I fouled the ball off my foot. I wore a guard pretty much all year, but I didn't wear it that day because I said 1-game playoff, I'm not going to wear my guard, and I was struggling a little bit. So Mickey, we're joking around. I said, "Hey, homie, let me borrow your bat." I said, "Let me try your bat." So I got in there, took some swings, started feeling good. Started hitting the ball pretty good. BP, but I hit a ball off the end of the bat and it got a hairline crack. So. The first 2 times up, I just went over to the rack, pulled one of his bats out, and went up and hit. But in the 7th inning, I pulled the bat out. Luckily, when I fouled the ball off my foot, I went back and Mickey walked over after when they were spraying the stuff on my foot. And he said, "Hey, homie," he says, "you got the wrong bat. That one's cracked." And I really wasn't paying attention to him because my foot was killing me. And so I started to go back to the plate, and the bat boy walked up and gave me the bat. Said, "Mickey said, use this bat." And I said, "Okay." So I walked up, and the first pitch, Torres threw a fastball down and in, and I hit it pretty good. I didn't know if it was going to go out, but there's a shadow on the wall. And when I got to first base, I rounded first base, and I saw the umpire had signaled a home run, and I saw Yastrzemski had buckled at the wall. He went down to his legs. And I do remember, rounding second base, third base, how quiet Fenway was, except for the sprinkling of the Yankee fans. I could hear them. And, people always ask me all the time, well, what were you thinking after you hit the home run? The only thing I was thinking was we're ahead, but we got 3 more innings to go, and they got a pretty good lineup. So, you can't get overjoyed right there.
Right, because it's not a walk off; it's a significant go ahead, but like you still have 3 innings left, so like
That's
that's a
right.
good point to
Yeah.
stay locked in there. It's probably was a challenge, I'm sure, just because it's such a big shot. But like, here's an interesting thing: do you think it was harder to tell if the ball goes out of Fenway now back then because there was no seats? You could probably tell easier today, like if you had the seats, right? It was probably harder to tell with a vantage point without the seats.
Well, I hit it on a line, and there was a little bit of a shadow on the wall there, and I was running because I was going to be the winning run. I was going to try and get to second base, if the ball hit off the wall, so I'd be the
Yeah.
winning run. So I really didn't know if I hit it high enough
Okay.
um, to go out. There's a couple times over the years that I went back. Actually, I took my wife Angie back up there. We were doing a story, and I was showing her where the ball went out. Where approximately it went out, and it was just different. I mean, seeing seats up on the wall and sitting up there was really different. I think it's awesome. It's a great seat, but yeah, the ball was kind of there was a shadow, and I really didn't see the ball go out.
Yeah, it's just crazy how much stuff has changed over time.
Hmm.
So I'll bring you back to that mindset you were talking about. So was you said you were able to kind of see the World Series is not a big of a stage because of like what happens at Fenway Park that day. Was there something else you did that kind of helped you lock in the moment? Because you kind of elevated your game in October, where other players go the other way. Like, was there what was your mindset in the World Series? Like when in these clutch moments, like you kind of hit on it before. I'm curious, like if there was more to it.
No, you start. You know, baseball is kind of like streaks follow streaks. When that game started in Boston, I was struggling a little bit. Then we went into the playoffs, and as you get through those, the playoff with Boston and Kansas City, you start to get locked in. I did a lot of visualization. I worked on my concentration a lot. And I started to feel really good during the World Series. Hitting the ball, and I'd been in a lot of championship series from little league to high school through the junior college, and through the minor leagues. You're through moments that
Okay.
are pressure packed moments. So you learn how to focus and how to put yourself in those situations where you're ready and you're talking through situations and things like that. But the like I said, after the game in Boston, everything seemed to be no pressure. That was the pressure packed game of all time. One of the greatest, I think, one of the greatest games ever played. But we had beat the Dodgers in '77, and those teams didn't like each other. We didn't. The Dodgers didn't like us, and we didn't like the Dodgers. So here we are back again. So it was a combination of we didn't want to let them beat us. We went down 2 games, and then on the plane back, Munson was joking around. We're all joking around on the plane, and he says, "Hey, listen, we weren't picked to win the division 14 down. We weren't picked to beat Boston. We weren't picked to beat Kansas City. And now we're 2 games down. But guess what? We got Guidry pitching Friday night, and we go back home. We beat them Friday night. We're going to beat them 4 straight. We're going to win the World Series." And that's what happened. It was, he called it.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta believe. So, how often do people still stop you and talk about that? It's like a daily occurrence. Like, it's tough to get by a day without someone bringing up the Homer.
Oh yeah, pretty much, and I love it. I love it because as a kid I dreamed of playing for the Yankees. I dreamed of a big moment, in the backyard, hitting a big home run, and all those things happened. I got traded to the Yankees. I won a World Championship in '77. I got to hit one of the biggest home runs in history, and win another World Championship. So all those things, it's just great. I mean, I had a wonderful career. I wouldn't change anything, other than getting traded from the Yankees. So all those things they're just great moments.
So, speaking of great moments, that World Series in '78, like you talk about carrying momentum, you really just took it all the way through. You were like 10 for 24. You had a 417 batting average, I think, in the World Series. You win the MVP, 7 RBI. So, like, how crazy was that to be to contribute at such a high level to them going back to back?
Well, it's a great feeling. I mean, there's a couple guys that had great World Series. Brian Doyle had a great World Series. Nettles had a great World Series. Playing third base, making all the plays and stuff like that. And it was a tremendous honor for me to win the Most Valuable Player. But that's the thing that um, that was so great about our team, that we had certain guys that I call them glue guys. We had our
Right.
stars. We had our Reggies and Munsons, but then we had the Brian Doyles, the Fred Stanleys. The guys like myself, the quiet guys like Roy White. We everybody contributes when you win a World Series. And that's the thing that's so neat about it. And that team, those teams that I played on. Those guys were fun, but they were business when you went to the park. You better be locked in, ready to play, or somebody was going to say something to you.
Yeah, no, that seems to be how they get it done. So let me try to parallel some stuff here. So we just saw the Dodgers go back to back for the first time since the Yankees did it in like 25 years or so. Like, why do you think it's so much harder for teams to go back to back today? Do you think it's just like the way the game is, like how many big contracts there are? It's just like harder to like consistently win. Like, what do you think it is?
Well, I think it's harder because of free agency. Guys are chasing the money, and you win, then everybody wants to pattern their team like your team. And the Dodgers were kind of like we were with the Yankees with Mr. Steinbrenner. He was going to do whatever he could to put the best team on the field. And he went out and he did it. The Dodgers are the one team, they're not afraid to spend the money. And they pretty much the nucleus of the guys that they've had before, except maybe a guy change here, a guy, and that's the way it was with us. When we won in '77, we didn't change a lot of our guys, and we were built to win. And George was going to do that. And so, but now I think because of free agency, guys jumping around, and it's a little more harder to repeat.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's more parity than there was too. It
Yeah.
seems like a lot of middling teams and then there's some at the bottom and the top. So let's go segue to the Yankees. Like this is probably a hard question to ask, but I'll give it my best ever here. Like, why do you think they haven't won in 16 years? Like, what do you think they need to do to get back to the top?
Well, I think it's important, like when we were winning, we were built in a certain way. And, I think over the years, the Yankees, when they started their run in '96, I was coaching with Texas and they beat us three times: '96, '98, '99. I thought we had a really good team, especially one in '99. But they had they had that character, that that we had, that mindset that you are not going to beat us no matter what. And about 5 years ago, I said when I was doing my podcast when we were doing COVID, the Yankees got beat, and I looked up. Actually, my stepson looked it up. He's an analyst for MLB,
Yep.
and he said the Yankees in the history of the World Series had never won a World Series without left-handed power. They were more right-handed, power-oriented back then, and they
Hmm.
got beat. They got shut down by the Astros, and they got beat. And then now we've switched over to being more left-handed power. So I think that you need to have a balance. Um, I, I I think you have to have a balanced lineup, and the other thing that makes it hard for them again is every year there's they got free agents that you got to try and sign, or they're going to leave. They're going to go for more money.
Yeah.
So like we were talking earlier, so it's tough. It's tough to win, and I tell players, when you get that opportunity, look, we won two, 77, 78. We lost in 81. Me as a player, I never had another opportunity to play in the World Series. So sometimes you only get one shot at it. But as far as the Yankees, they're they need to have a little bit more balance, and they have to have some of those glue guys, those guys that are just tough, gritty guys. That's what I see. I mean, you look at the Toronto Blue Jays this year. Look how they were built. They have their stars, but these guys come from nowhere. Clement, you know, uh, he had a great World Series. You have guys that are stars that are hitting home runs and stuff, but you have other guys that play the game of baseball. You know what I mean? They they'll bunt. You know, all the analytics goes out when you're in a World Series, and then you have
Right.
guys that put the ball in play. They don't strike out a lot. I think one of the statistics I saw was against the Yankees, they had 38 two-ball counts, two strike counts, excuse me, and they put the ball in play. You know, I mean, so that's the thing that I think when you're talking about you need a good group of guys that are on the same page, and there's nothing going to stop you in the mindset that you're going to win.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I definitely think they're missing a lot of glue guys. I really do agree with that because like they don't really have guys that elevate their game in October. Like it's been the opposite. Like people have been going the wrong way. I think a
Right.
good glue guy could be Caballero. I feel like that's a guy you might appreciate maybe going forward. Or they kind of threw him in late this year. I think that could be like a good glue guy maybe. But they need more. They definitely need more of those type of guys.
Yeah, and you need those guys that are just baseball players, what I call baseball players. That no matter what, they're hustling, they're diving all over the place, making plays, and it's like I said, it's tough to put those teams together now because you got one guy here, you got two or three guys here, and then two guys leave, go free agency, and it's just a little more tougher to put those teams there. That's why you got to admire the Dodgers now
Yeah.
in this time because they've kept their team together and they won back to back, and they could do it again next year. You never
Yep,
know.
they might. That's a
Yeah.
scary thought, but they could. And like another glue guy that I feel like you would really resonate with is Kike Hernandez. Is like the perfect example of what we're talking about. Like he's such a good playoff player for the Dodgers. He helps them win every year.
Oh yeah, like you said, those guys they when the lights come on and the big spotlights come on, they elevate their game. They concentrate. They make plays. I mean, look at the last game against Toronto. Bases loaded, guy smokes a ball, second base. He comes up with a tough play, throws a guy out the plate, and then the next ball was hitting the left center, which you thought the game was over. And
Yep.
that center fielder comes out of nowhere and makes a great play. And that's what it takes to win. You do the unthinkable sometimes.
All right, so I'll take you back in time and we'll wrap up soon. So, like, you're talking about being a Yankees fan, but you were born in Georgia. So, like, what drew you to be a Yankees fan? Was it just like how big their brand was? Were they winning back then? Like, did you resonate with some of the players? Like, and like, what was some of your background growing up, like, getting into baseball? Did you know you always wanted to be a baseball player?
No, actually, I like football more.
Oh
My
wow.
brother was a big factor in me playing sports. He was 10 years older and he taught me how to play the game. He taught me to be tough, and there's no excuses with him when I played. He was ahead of me. But what happened back then was um, the World Series was played in the daytime. And when we were in school, what would happen was the teacher would come in and she would go, "Okay, World Series is on today. If y'all are quiet, I'll turn the game on." And what happened was the Yankees were winning like every year. I think it was like 5 years in a row. So every
Oh,
year
okay.
the Yankees were in it, and Mickey Mantle was my hero. He's the guy that made me, really fall in love with the Yankees. Mickey Mantle. I mean, wow. But I had to make a decision in my senior year of high school that because I did love football more than I did baseball, but I felt that I could go farther in baseball because I was a small running back, and I just said I think I'm just going to dedicate myself to playing baseball, and it turned out to be pretty good.
Well, I would say so. A few World Series rings and MVP later in the
Yeah.
series. So, you can tell us what are you getting into now? Like, are you working on any new projects or anything with the family, or like, what's your day to day looking like? Like, is there anything the public should know that you're up to?
Oh no, I started an Instagram. Charlie, my stepson, talked me in. He said, "You got to get on social media now, and do some things. Let people know what you're doing and stuff like that." But no, my wife Angie and I, we travel a lot. We like to fish, we like to hunt, we like to walk. We're just kind of like enjoying life, and whatever comes along, and we think it's good, then we'll do it. But we're just we've done a lot of traveling over the last 4 or 5 years, and really enjoyed it. And it's been a lot of fun. Yeah, well, I want to thank you too for having me on. I really enjoyed talking to you and stuff like that. And good luck with your podcast.
So everyone, that was Bucky Dent. So if everyone wants to check me out, you can subscribe to me on Julian Guilarte, World Baseball Network.